Hey guys, Dr. D here. I am about to start this training that I'm super excited about. Let's go ahead and get this going here. All right, so I am Dr. Danita Morales Ramos. Guys, Dr. D here. I am about to start this training. All right, so let's try that again. There we go. All right, so Dr. D here, starting this training, Grow Your Child to a Healthy Adult. I am Dr. Danita Morales Ramos, clinical psychologist. And I decided to do this little training here because I often see clients that come to see me and their report is that their child is having some difficulty. And after talking to them, what I found out that it's not a child problem, it's usually a parenting problem. And so with small little education, psychoeducation, as well as parenting strategies, I'm able to help parents within a few sessions figure out a way to effectively interact and engage with their child rather than reacting to their child, and helping them to grow up to be a healthy adult. Okay, and so let me go ahead and jump right into this. So first and foremost, please understand that your child is your responsibility. So in this fast-paced world that we are in, oftentimes what we find ourselves doing is just being worn out. And by the time we get home and it's time to start parenting our kids or interacting with them virtually when they're older, and we're going communicating with them through text messages and virtual communication, we're just worn out and we forget that parenting is our responsibility. And so that's one of the first things that I remind parents of, is that parenting is your responsibility. So you report to parent just the same way as you report to work. So you don't show up to work and and not be prepared to put in the work, not be prepared to follow through with things. So you shouldn't do parenting like that any different. If you view parenting as a job and responsibility, then you would show up to that interaction with your kid differently. You also need to remember to focus on the same mission with the other parent. So you want to be on a unified front. Oftentimes, parents don't sit down and decide how they're going to parent their child before they actually start doing it. So you'll have one parent doing one thing and the other parent doing something else. And then initially the child is confused, but eventually the child begins to understand what to expect from what parent, to the point that they learn to manipulate the two parents. And so what I share with parents is decide together how you want to parent your child, how you want to discipline your child, what things you want to teach your child. And then after you make that decision, then you come in front of the child and you implement what it was that you said that two of you were going to do. You want to have a unified front. Lastly, you want to deal with your emotions away from your child. So not only do you want to do all the back foundational work behind the scenes before you even engage with your child, you also want to deal with your emotions away from the child. Now, I see it with both parents oftentimes, but the more feminine or the female parent typically demonstrates much more emotion and when interacting with the child, but also is much more reactionary to emotion. So you want to learn to interact with your child and not react with your child. And so how do you do that? You may have to step away from whatever, as long as there's not a safety issue, okay? You may have to step away for a moment and decide how you're going to deal with this particular issue, even if you need to tell your child, hey, I need a minute. I need a minute to process this. And you step back, you figure out what it is that you're feeling. You also figure out what it is that did not happen. It will meet your expectations. Also determine if you clearly communicated those expectations. And then you go to your child and respond accordingly, okay? It may even be that your child is acting out And you may need to step away from them to allow them to calm down before you confront that behavior again, as long as there's not a safety issue. All right, so growth and development. Parent based on your child's development, not yours. I'll say that again. Parent based on your child's development, not yours. Oftentimes, parents forget that they were a child once. You know, parents want kids to respond to them the way that they respond in situations now. So, for example, you have a parent that's saying, well, whenever I tell her or whenever I tell him to wash the dishes, he's always frowning. Or whenever I tell him to sit down, he starts crying. And I say, or I tell him that he can't play his game anymore because it's time to go to bed, he starts crying. And I said, well, would you be happy if you were no longer able to do something that was fun and entertaining for you? Would you be happy, or were you happy when your parents told you to go and do chores? And so again, as I said on an earlier slide, making sure that you deal with your emotions away from your child. All right. And so parents often forget, again, what it was like to be a child. So focus on developing your child at their age appropriate level. Smaller kids are going to whine. And if you don't allow them to whine or cry to some level and some degree, then when they get older, they may still continue to do those things. And then one of the reasons why kids whine and cry early on is because they haven't learned how to use certain words to express their feelings. And so if you want to help the child, you may communicate to them, you know, are you happy? Are you sad? Are you upset? Are you frustrated? You can ask them those things, or you can just model expressing your feelings when something happens, by sharing with them how you're feeling. Mommy's really frustrated right now because I'm trying to fix this a new piece of furniture, and it, you know, I don't understand all the ways to put it together, and so it's frustrating for me. Or I'm excited right now because we're about to go see a family member. So using feeling words, and as your child develops, they learn to express themselves. But initially, early on, they are whining, or maybe saying the same things over and over again, or crying because they haven't learned to fully express themselves. You even have some adults that haven't all the way learned how to express themselves, but have the expectation that their child would communicate to them how they're feeling. So understand that the whining is them expressing their frustration, their negative emotions sometimes, or maybe even their lack of understanding. Also remember, understanding the purpose of a desired behavior is not the end goal. Okay, remember, understanding the purpose of a desired behavior is not the end goal. So I may be telling my child right now to clean the dishes. The dishes getting done in and of itself is not the end goal. The end goal is to help my child to grow up and to be a healthy adult, one that knows how to pick up and clean up after him or herself. Okay, does that make sense? Remembering to understand that the behavior that you're demonstrating right now is not the ultimate goal. We want to sometimes see the fruits of our labor right away, but no, you may not see the fruits of you, the upbringing and the rearing that you're doing of your child until your child becomes an adult, maybe not even to a middle-aged adult. But knowing that if you're consistent with showing them some things, that over time you will help your child to grow up to be a healthy adult. Lastly, don't project your stuff onto your child. It is not uncommon for me as a clinical psychologist to see parents to come in and they say, oh, well, I don't want to correct my child because my mother corrected me all the time. Or I don't want to give my child chores because I had too many chores. Or I don't want my child to feel bad because I felt bad. And what I tell them is you need to handle your stuff. Don't project your stuff onto your child. And so, and how I share with them to do that is to decide what is important to you as far as bringing up your child. Is it important to you that your child not feel these uncomfortable emotions right now? Or is it important for them to learn some moral character? Is it important for them to learn some work ethic? Is it important for them to learn how to work collaboratively with other people? So making sure that you're keeping the end goal in mind and not projecting your stuff onto your child. Big picture. Natural versus logical consequences. These consequences teach your child to control him or herself. So in order for your child to grow up to be a healthy adult, they have to have an opportunity to practice certain things and to make mistakes and to see what happens as a result of those mistakes, or to see what happens as a result of certain actions and reactions. And so you have natural consequences. For example, if your 2 or 3 or 4 year old is jumping on the couch and you said multiple times, don't jump on the couch, you may fall and hurt yourself. And the child falls off the couch and bumps their knee or hits their little head. Now, obviously, again, you want safety. You don't want your child to get seriously injured, but your child, it's, I mean, it happens. Kids jump on things because it seems like a fun thing to do for them, right? And they don't recognize all the dangers. But then when they hit their knee, instead of, you know, making this big, long conversation, the child says, "Oh, mommy, I hurt my knee." And it said, "Well, how did you hurt your knee?" And they said, "Oh, I hurt my knee. I fell off the couch." And you say, "Did you fall off the couch or were you jumping on the couch?" And the child says, "Well, I was jumping." You say, "Okay, well, don't jump on the couch and you won't hurt your knee." That is an age appropriate consequence because the hurting of the knee was the natural consequence, okay? Bumping of the knee, let me rephrase that. Or losing a cell phone. So you buy a cell phone that at an age appropriate level for your child, and you've explained to them how to keep up with things, and the child loses the cell phone. Well, you don't go right to the store and buy the child another cell phone. The child says, "Mom, I lost my cell phone. I can't call my friends." And you share with them, well, that's why I explained to you in the beginning how you need to keep up with your cell phone. So you'll have to save your allowance, or you'll have to cut a few more grasses so that you can earn another cell phone. Or here it is January and they've already lost the cell phone and it was a Christmas gift. You have to wait till next Christmas to see if you can get another cell phone for Christmas. Well, Mom, I'm not going to be able to call anyone all year. I understand. When you get a cell phone next time, you know, think of ways and how you can keep up with your things. Those are natural consequences. Then logical. Logical is one that's not necessarily natural, but it just makes sense to put that in place in order to help place the consequence there. And so the child got in trouble for showing up late at school. So, okay, well, you were late for school, honey. I understand that you were tired and you overslept, but so what we're going to do is we're going to go to bed earlier tonight. Instead of 9 o'clock, we're going to go to bed at 8:30. That way you can get up and be at school on time. But Mommy, I don't want to go to bed early. I understand, but tonight you're going to bed early because you got to school late today. Or earlier curfew. You explained to your child that you can go out with your friends to the movies, but you need to be back by 9:30, and your child comes in at 10 o'clock. Okay, well, now your curfew is 8:45. All right. And so big picture is, how do I teach my child what are natural consequences for their behaviors so that they can learn to control themselves, so that my child can know that if jumping on the couch, I'll hurt myself. So if I don't want to hurt myself, I've already had a consequence of bumping my knee. And I recognize that now that I've bumped my knee, I don't want to bump my knee anymore. So instead of jumping on the couch, I may jump on the floor if my mom says I can jump on the floor, or I'll jump outside where it may be more appropriate. Or I really like enjoying and playing with my friends, and not missing out on the fun activities. And so I'm going to follow curfew once I've earned the right to have a later curfew. All right. Communicate clearly and directly your expectations and the consequences of those expectations being met or not met. So please understand that you cannot expect your child to follow through with something that they don't understand if you haven't clearly told them. Parents often get into these toughs with their kids, one, because they haven't clearly and directly said what they expect. Or they've clearly said what they expect, but they haven't clearly indicated what the consequences of not meeting those expectations would be. So um, the little girl here has her apple and her cake in front of her. And I don't think that this is a typical look. Kids are usually looking at the sweets, but she's looking at the apples. And so mom says you can have an apple for snack now or a cake for snack after you eat your dinner. And so please understand that everyone likes choices. Even you as an adult like to walk into work and your boss says, hey, you can, your office can be over here near the break room, or your office can be down closer to the copier. Which do you prefer? You can report to work, work 4 days a week, or you can work 5 days a week, 4 10-hour days, or 5 days, 8 hours a day. Which works better for you? Everyone likes choices, including children and teenagers. And so you can have the apple now. Okay, so you have the little child in front of you. They want a snack. They really, really want the cake. You want them to eat healthy snacks. And instead of you explaining this whole thing to them, you give them the choice. And so it's okay, parents, if you set the choice up in such a way that the child can make healthy choices for themselves, or that, instead of saying you can have an apple for snack now and an apple later, or you can have a snack after, or you can have dessert, which is an apple after your dinner. If you want it to, you can frame it in so many different ways. Mom, I want dessert. Okay, you can have an apple after you eat your dinner. So it's still a choice. It's like after you eat your dinner, you're able to have this. In other words, if they don't eat their dinner, they don't get the apple. So depending on their age, the choices can be very simple, but it needs to be clear and direct. In other words, it needs to be as concrete as possible so that they can clearly understand. So there's no ambiguity there. You can drive the car as long as you come home by 9:30. Very simple, clear cut and dry. Instead of saying, where are you and your friends going? How? Well, don't be back too late. And so your kid comes back at 12:30 and you're like, why are you home so late? Well, your child might not feel like 12:30 is too late, because too late is not anything clear and direct. You said you can drive the car as long as you're home by 9:30. And so the clear thing is you're able to drive the car, but it's expected to be back at 9:30 if you're going to drive the car. Now, later on, if the child comes back after 9:30, then there needs to be some type of consequence, which should probably be that they can't drive the car because they can't bring it back by 9:30. So making sure you communicate clearly and directly your expectations and the consequences of those expectations. So let's go a little bit down the infant all the way up to the adult age, to talk about how you should interact with your child in a way and parent them by taking responsibility. With an infant, you want to be attentive and redirect. So attentive, at that age, kids require lots of attention. They are, they just come out the womb, and then they get a little older and they may be able to crawl somewhat, and they are ready to explore everything. They have no ideas about boundaries. They have no idea about rules. They have no idea about dangers. And so it is your job as the parent to be attentive. But it's also your job to, while you're being attentive, to redirect. And so at that age level, things just changes in your voice let the child know that you get their attention. Like even how I'm talking for this video, making sure that I am communicating in such a way with the audience, to get your attention, to hear what it is that I'm saying. But if I wanted to change the flow or the direction of your attentiveness, then I have to do something for that. So I change the tone of my voice and make it a little deeper, right? And so with an infant, you may be trying to coddle them and make them go to sleep, oh, baby, yeah, mommy's so happy to see you. And you're twinkling. But then the baby picks up something like a pen and gets rid of it. Oh, no, don't put that in your mouth. And so now they've heard something different and it stimulates them in a different way. So you change the tone of your voice. And how would you redirect the child? Like this baby right here has a set of baby keys. And so I see the baby pick up a pen and I sweetly said, no, don't put that in your mouth. Here, play with these. Now, even though the baby may not understand every word that I'm saying, I'm redirecting the child to a different activity. And so those are natural consequences. The baby plays with the pen, the tone of my voice changes, but at the same time, I redirect them with a healthy behavior. And so after a while, this child would develop and start looking for their keys. Now, that doesn't mean that, or playing with their, be more inclined to play with their keys. That doesn't mean that they're still not able to experience some type of danger or be in some type of dangerous situation. So you still need to maintain and be attentive. Toddlers, disengage as appropriate. Don't explain, disengage, and then re-engage. And so we build on the behaviors that we've already taught our child. We've already taught them that the change in our voice means something. The tone of our voice means something. And we've also taught them by redirecting them. Now we continue to do those things, but they are also old enough to, they've started to learn some words, and we are able to help them to do a little bit more here at the toddler age. And so timeout or refocus your attention. So I often see parents in the grocery store when they go down that dreaded line with all the candy and all the snacks, and the kid says, I want this, I want this, I want this. And mommy says, no, here you can play with your toy. And sometimes that works for some parents, but other parents it doesn't work for, because what happens is the child starts crying, like this child looks like she's crying here in the video, and the parent hurry up and gives the child something or gives them what they're whining about. And so the child learns that if I whine when I come in the store, their mommy will give me something from the dreaded trigger you space at the checkout there. But if you do timeout or refocus of attention, you help the child understand no means no. This is how boundaries are learned and understood. So even at a very, very small age, they're starting to understand these boundaries if we actually teach it to them. And so what does that look like? You're at the line and you say no, and you refocus your attention. That means you can you can give the child something else, here, you can play with your toy, but you cannot have the lollipop. And rather than continuing to explain why candy is so expensive, why they put it there because, they want the parents to buy, and your 2-year-old is looking at you like, I have no clue what you're talking about, lady, and they're whining louder, or sir, right? And they're getting louder and louder. But rather than do that, you just say, no, you cannot have that. You disengage, you start doing something else, you start piling your stuff up on top of the conveyor belt, and then after you're through the line, and you can get, okay, so now we're going to the car, and you re-engage. So obviously you want to still, if they're in the basket, you want to still make sure that they're safe, but those are simple ways to disengage when it's appropriate, and understanding that no means no, because now you're starting to teach your child about boundaries. Preschool age, again, everything is building, so nothing at the top has changed. Disengage is appropriate at this developmental age. Time is not as important as purpose. And so if you sit a child who's like, I'm going to sit you in timeout for 30 minutes, that's not necessarily going to be very effective, because at a preschool age, this child, soon to be a big person, has no sense of time. So 30 minutes as opposed to 5 minutes is really forever. So all you're trying to do is to demonstrate to them some type of consequence. And this is more of a logical consequence of how something has happened that and something different needs to be happening. So there's a kid here, looks like he's playing Go Fish maybe, or something like that, some type of card game. And then you see some kids over there on the play mat. And so the kids over there on the play mat are, for whatever reason, let's say this kid was removed or placed in timeout. Maybe not even, you don't even necessarily have to call it timeout. The child was removed from the activity. Maybe he wasn't playing very friendly. Maybe, or maybe, it wasn't, there was some other behavioral thing that was going on, and he just needed time to regroup. And so rather than saying, oh, you're going to timeout, you can give him a timeout or his attention, refocus his attention to something else, or give him a separate activity for just a period. Hey, it's a lot of other little kids right here playing right now, or it's too many kids playing right here, right now. Why don't you go and play Go Fish until they finish playing the game, right? And so you remain calm. You don't have to get upset. You remain calm, and help the child to still learn developmentally appropriate behaviors, and at the same time showing the child that they can't have everything that they want when they want it, that sometimes things don't go the way that we planned, but there's definitely ways that we can do some things that empower us and still feel like we're part of a part of the overall uh, context of the thing that is going on. So remain calm. All right, elementary school is a place in time, and not just elementary school, elementary age, to build a foundation. Here's where you teach your child to earn what he or she wants in order to develop work ethic and prevent entitlement. And just to let you know, you can start that at around the preschool age somewhat too, but it definitely happens in elementary school. It just depends on uh, how much engagement they have with other kids and how structured you help to have their day. If children have access to electronics, which many kids do nowadays, making sure that these things are supervised. Electronics are a privilege. They are very expensive pieces of equipment. Kids at an elementary age and pretty much all the way through high school, unless they have a job and by their own, don't really recognize how much these machines are worth. Not only that, they don't recognize the dangers that could be associated with that if some predator or something is using an electronic device to basically target kids. And so, and that is a real thing. So making sure that they're supervised, or having other little kids that may not be supervised with their electronics are communicating with your child and you're not supervising them, different things can could possibly occur. So use all the strategies discussed earlier, and here's some additional things. Implement age-appropriate feedback. So if you don't want to use the word discipline and things like that, I like the word feedback. You're giving them feedback of what their behavior will result in and helping them to learn to control themselves. And so you take the child out to a play date or to a birthday party and the child is just mean, they're throwing cake, and you say, okay, well, it's time for us to go. You cannot stay for the pinata part, and they leave. That's a logical consequence. No snack. You have to make sure that you eat your vegetables. They didn't eat their vegetables. Okay, so if you didn't eat your vegetables, then you don't get a snack or dessert. No TV or computer time. You didn't turn in your homework, or you didn't complete your homework before the time, or you didn't complete it at all, then there's no TV or computer time. And also you can use the change in tone of voice depending on what it is. Look at the teacher here, she's smiling, but let's say someone in the back of the room is talking, she may lift her voice up somewhat and say, little Johnny, we're having a group time right now. Please stop playing with the toys in the back. Okay, and so you want to provide a balance of positive reinforcement and corrective feedback. And so positive reinforcement would be, the child does her homework tonight like she's supposed to. Thank you for completing your homework. You can go and watch TV. Tweenagers, make sure the time fits the crime. Teenagers at this age are exploring their identity and just trying to discover who they are, not just sexually, just who they are amongst their peers, and acceptance and all this other stuff is very important. This young lady here looks like she might be 12 or 13, so she may be exploring makeup and wanting to explore what it's like to maybe look feminine, or what she perceives as looking feminine, whatever, right? And so you may be a parent that does not want a teenager to wear makeup yet, and so you need to communicate that clearly with your child, and what the expectations are as far as makeup, and what is the consequences of not following those expectations. So you also need to allow them to solve their own problems, so you give more positive reinforcement and limited corrective feedback. And so how does that work? Create a behavior contract. At 12, you can wear lip gloss. You can wear eyeliner and blush at 14. Okay. If just wear lip gloss right now. But if you try to wear other kinds of makeup, you won't be able to wear any makeup until you turn 16. Taking away privileges. If you wear any other lip gloss besides a clear lip gloss, or if you play your video, get up at night and play your video game while you're still supposed to be sleeping, then I'll take the video game from you for 2 nights or 1 week, depending on how old they are. Teach, don't preach. And so just teaching her, honey, the reason why I don't want you to wear makeup is because when you wear makeup, some people may think that you're older. And so I prefer that you not wear makeup until you turn 16. At 12, I don't want you to look like a 16-year-old at this age. That's it, not give them the whole spiel of what happened when you grew up and all these other things, and encourage problem solving. Honey, why do you want to wear makeup right now? Why do you want to stay up late and play your video game? And allow your child to talk to you and explain some things, and then still keep your expectations very clear about what you want, but at least listening to them and say, okay, well, in what other ways could you make yourself look pretty if you besides makeup? Because you can't wear the other kind of makeup, but you can wear clear lip gloss. So what other kind of ways could you make yourself look pretty? Oh, you could wear a nice dress. Well, sure. Let's talk about how we can find you nice dresses. And so you allow for natural consequences as well. Sometimes they may put the makeup on and snuck in your makeup, and then they go to school and they get teased by their friends because they've put it all over their faces, and they had a bad experience about that. And they come home crying, Mom, my makeup, they laughed at my makeup. And so you just listen to them and say, well, honey, I understand. How do you think that you could solve this differently? Okay. Teens, give more positive reinforcement and limited corrective feedback. Okay, so now you're giving them less corrective feedback in that you've taught them lots of things by the time they get anywhere from 13 to 14. And you're going to teach them some more things, but you don't have to drill it in as much because they're able to retain a lot more than your infant or your preschooler. And so you teach them without preaching to them by allowing them to explore some freedom, if you will. And so I forgot my homework. Can you bring it to the school? And so you've already told your child every day to put their book bag somewhere, put their homework up, and you have brought their homework to school to them a couple times just to kind of help them out. But you've indicated to them, hey, next time you forget your homework, I'm not bringing your homework to you. You need to remember to put your homework away. So if they don't bring the homework in, And what happens is when you get that call, you say, no, I'm not bringing your homework. So they get the natural consequence of getting into zero. And so you allow your teenager to make mistakes. And so they realize other consequences that come about, not just that mom and dad have instituted consequences. Listen to them and say you understand, because you do. Well, mom, I'm going to get a zero. I understand. Um, but I won't be bringing your homework. Well, what do I do? I'm not sure. What do you think you should do? You could say that, or you can say you need to talk to your teacher. Don't negotiate, enforce the rules. So you've already said if you forget your homework again, um, I, I'm not going to bring it to you. Don't allow your child to, mom, if you do this, I'll never forget it again. No, enforce the rules. Give them the direct feedback. Neck, honey, it's up to you to remember to bring your homework. Boom, that's it. When they are responsible, there's a little typo there. When they are responsible, offer the privilege of more freedom. So, if your child turns in their homework all of the time, and this is one time that they've forgotten in the last 3 months, give them the freedom of, contacting their teacher, maybe with your cell phone. Or giving them the freedom to drive their car if they're old enough, contacting their teacher to ask for additional time, right? Or giving them the freedom to drive the car, even though it's your car, right? To communicate with their teacher about a time that's convenient for their teacher to go and turn the assignment in. All right, biggest parenting mistakes. Be a parent, guys. Be a parent and be responsible. Remember, this is your job. Don't get into power struggles with your kids. You have the power. At the end of the day, you have the power. Parents want to fight over the power and who's in charge. You are. So you don't have to fight with your kids about that. Just follow the guidelines that was in this training. Having unclear expectations will result in poor results as far as what you're expecting from your child. You're not going to get the desired results that you want. Giving privileges that are earned, giving a elementary school kid a cell phone and expecting them to keep up with the cell phone and not be engaged in probably some illicit or illegal or some inappropriate content because they haven't earned that. They don't even understand the responsibility that goes with that. If you model undesired behavior, you're hollering, like this mom looks like she's hollering, but then you expect your kid not to holler, not being consistent. If you say you're going to institute a certain consequence or give them some type of reward and you don't. Reversing consequences, especially on serious offense. If your child breaks a curfew, but then the next night you still allow them to go out, that is not going to be effective at all. Expecting perfection, expecting that your kids won't make mistakes. It's going to be very burdensome for you as well as your child. You should expect them to make mistakes. That's how they're getting information and learning, also helping them to resolve some of their own issues. Don't solve it right away. They forgot their homework. Well, let them figure out how in the future they can remember to bring their homework. Wanting your child not to be emotional, again, back to the dishes thing. It's okay that they are having emotions. Negative and positive emotions is a part of being human. And expecting your child to get it right now, expecting that everything you're teaching your child, they're going to get it right away. Give them the opportunity to grow from a child into a healthy adult. So I want to thank you for taking the opportunity to allow me, Dr. Morales Ramos, here at Assert Yourself LLC, where we make no apologies, to be able to share this training with you. We are on social media at Facebook at Danita Morales 1, Instagram at Danita Morales, Twitter at Danita Morales 1, and YouTube at Dr. Morales Ramos. And so we'd be happy to provide any type of additional parenting training that you may want. And we also offer family counseling. Thank you, and you guys have a great day.